the Switch 2 Pro controller was first shown off, I dismissed it. Looks just like the old one and they work on Switch 2 perfectly fine, I said. You can access game chat from the main menu, so I don't need that extra button. What's the point? These are the words of a man who simply didn't know. Yeah, this new Pro controller hasn't had a radical redesign, but the feel. Oh baby, the feel. Touching this is like playing with a cloud in your hands. I don't know what material they're using, but it's the softest plastic I've ever touched in my life, and it feels so nice. I mean, going back to the Switch 1's Pro controller, one that I used to love, honestly feels really cheap now. It's all a little bit slippery, whereas this cloudy little guy is a perfect grip. Part of this comes down to the difference in their curve, and this is kinda hard to show visually, but you'll understand when you hold it. Switch 2 Welcome Tour says they molded it off the GameCube controller's feel, and you can totally get that. It's so perfectly molded to your hands and everything just rests in the right place. The Xbox Series controller has a really nice texture too, but look at the gaps between my fingers when just casually resting on the sticks. But with Switch 2, I am hugging this thing by default, a big, tight cuddle. And the sticks, you gotta feel these sticks. A lot of analog sticks don't actually have a whole lot of give. It's actually a bit difficult to push them anywhere but the maximum strength, but these ones feel like a gradual glide. It actually makes N64 games a whole lot easier to play because they're designed around all the give the N64 stick had. It's so much easier to reach those middle inputs than any of these, especially the DualSense. This thing has a really small range. And while we're talking about the sticks, they've been engineered to be practically silent. Moving any other controller around and you're going to hear plastic grinding on plastic. But with Switch 2, complete silence. Take a listen. Now, as a pretty big Tetris player, one thing I was worried about was the D-pad. Switch 1's looks nice, but it doesn't function all that well, so you're prone to a lot of misdrops. I played Tetris with the Joy-Con because of that. So how is it here? Well, it's better, but this is still where it's not perfect. Just rocking left and right as best as I can in quick succession, there's still some quick drops, so it's registering up rather than left and right. Obviously this is an extreme demonstration, no one's actually playing this way, but these misdrops are totally still possible. And that sucks. This was the biggest problem with the original Pro controller. I was really hoping they'd nail it this time. Now, in general gameplay, I have noticed an improvement. I'm misdropping far less often. The pad's feeling pretty great for Street Fighter 6 as well, but this D-pad is still the biggest weakness of this controller. An improvement, but not perfect. And that's really my only hang-up. This thing feels like a dream, the sticks are remarkable, and that headphone jack goes a long way. Bluetooth audio isn't a good fit for games, so just being able to lounge on the sofa with a pair of headphones in dock mode is excellent. Doubles as a microphone jack too, so in game chat you can use your own mic rather than the console's one. Switch 2 is also the only first-party controller with affordable back paddles, and I say affordable, fully aware that this is a £75 controller, but that's still better than £200. I didn't think I'd find much use for these, but I've actually used them a ton. In From Software games, I always claw the controller like a lobster, because the run button is on A, meaning you can't move the camera while sprinting past enemies. Now that's a lot easier to manage when the A button rests where you hold the controller in your grip. I can now run and look to my heart's content. And speaking of Dark Souls on the Switch is a little weirdo game where B is accept and A is cancel. I can never get my mind around that. So when navigating menus, I put accept, being the B button, on the left panel. It's easier to remember a new input than rethink my whole life around A being accept, so this is the easier way to have things done. Putting run on GL or GR is usually the go-to input. It's better than clicking a stick in. And in Breath of the Wild's case, B is run and X is jump, so you can't do both at the same time without clawing, and you can't use the camera while doing it either. So easy fix, jump on the left paddle, run on the right paddle. Feels incredible. And in Dragon Quest games, you can advance text with both the D-pad and the face buttons, meaning you can kind of casually one-hand the controller in these dialogue-heavy sections. And I love that. I want all RPGs to be like that. So in Persona 5, I made the GL button A, so I can either hold it like this, or hold it in my left hand like this and just casually advance the text. These are programmed on a user-by-user and game-by-game basis, so it's so easy to jump in and out of different configurations. Remapping is a breeze too. Just hold the home button, press either GL or GR, and then just whatever input you want them to be. That's it. I was a bit worried that I'd be whacking them around the entire time when playing, but I've not done that at all. You've got to press them with purpose, otherwise you're not really making any contact. Something that really pushes the premium feel of this controller is the lack of seams and screws. You've got one seam here, in the middle, highlighting all the buttons, but otherwise it's a seamless, smooth plastic. No exposed screws like the Pro Controller 1, no clear gaps in the plastic where it's being held together like the DualSense and Series X. And that's not just great aesthetically, but it also means that dirt and dust aren't being caught between these crevices. So your little cloud-feeling controller is going to look clean effortlessly, unless you're a little Dorito muncher. Of course, Switch 2 inherits the best part of Switch 1's Pro Controller, being the battery life. These are both 40 hours on a single charge, according to Nintendo's estimates. I've not had to charge this thing at all yet. But while they've estimated that this one takes 6 hours to fully charge, this one comes in at 3.5 hours. Really nice improvement. In comparison, the DualSense is said to last around 6 hours, although mine seems to last a bit shorter than that. And the Series X runs on AA's, but it can run to around 30 hours. So in every circumstance, this is easily the best battery life. Welcome Tour also says you get better latency using this wired than you did the Switch 1 Pro controller, so that's a really nice improvement too. Speaking of finer details, we discovered that gyro controls are drastically improved on the Switch 2. Using both the Joy-Con and the Pro controller, you'll barely need to recalibrate, which is something you did frequently on Switch 1. So in Splatoon, that Y button's barely gonna get any use. You should be aligned far more of the time, and it's also gonna make games that use a Wii Remote style pointer far more viable, like Mario Galaxy. HD Rumble 2's delightful as well. Granted, with Switch 1's track record, we can't expect that many games to actually use it, but it's from the same company that produced the DualSense's Rumble, so this is an evolution of what's in the DualSense. Welcome Tour's got a bunch of great examples, but you can feel it in action in Mario Kart World, where just about every reaction has a distinct feel. And Shadow Generations as well, bouncing off a spring feels totally different to springing off a rope. Time will tell what the actual showcase for HD Rumble 2 is gonna be, but I am a firm believer that this is rad as flip. My only real problem is that D-pad. It's an improvement, but it's not a perfect one. Everything else though is the best. Switch 2's Pro Controller feels better than any controller I've touched. The sticks are smoother and more versatile than any controller I've touched. The grip fits perfectly in your hands, those GL and GR buttons are extremely useful, motion is better, rumble is better, it's really no contest. I love the Xbox Series controller, but it's also pretty basic with no gyro. DualSense has cool features like the adaptive triggers, but I've always felt the actual plastic is pretty cheap and hollow feeling. And of course, the Switch 2 Pro controller is better than the Switch 1 Pro controller, in every way. But is it essential? Do you need it? Well, no, not really. Unless a game specifically relies on the new motion and HD Rumble 2, you'll be able to use your old Pro controllers just fine. But if you can, you really should get this. Switch 2's Pro controller is the nicest controller I've ever used, and if it weren't for that D-pad not quite being perfect, this would be full marks 10 out of 10. As it is though, we're giving the Switch 2 Pro controller a 9 out of 10. Maybe that D-pad won't make it the go-to for every single game, but it still holds its own. And just about every other game it's perfect for. The feel, the sticks, what a wonderful controller.